Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. And my name is Gary Fowler. I am the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in Silicon Valley. Today, I have an incredible guest who's a second time being on one of my shows. So, Dekai is an AI professor. He's invented and built the world's first global scale online language translator for his pioneering contributions to AI, like companies like Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, Translate have honored him for his computational linguistics as one of only 17 that was honored by his founding fellows. Dekai is an incredible guy. He works to bridge cultures, spans artificial intelligence in areas like cognition, language, music, creativity, ethics, society, and policy. He is a professor of computer science and engineering of an HKUST and distinguished scholar researcher at Berkeley's International Computer Science Institute. He serves on the board of ethics of a number of think tanks, the Future Society, and was one of the members, the original inaugural team member of 8 from Google's AI Ethics Council. So with that, I'd like to bring Dekai in, and today we're going to be talking about boomers versus doomers, AI accelerationism versus decelerationism. How you doing today, Dekai?
I'm doing great. How are you, Gary?
Good. So tell us a little bit about it. Let's talk about let's talk about the boomers versus the doomers. What's that all about?
There's been a lot of debate, in Silicon Valley, especially San Francisco Bay Area, about whether AI should be accelerated or decelerated. There's, obviously a lot of concern about the effects upon society worldwide of AI, which is disrupting every sphere of our lives. It's actually hard to think of an area of life that isn't going to be touched in significant ways by AI. And so, on the one hand, you have, I think, a lot of people who are saying, hang on a second, we don't know how to deal with this. We need to decelerate AI. And on the other hand, you have people who are saying full speed ahead. And this has gotten painted in, a pretty simplistic way between so-called AI accelerationists and AI decelerationist, popularly known again as the boomers versus the doomers.
Yeah, I mean, you
And
look at it, Dekai, but I mean, think about all the challenges we have on the planet, right? We've got as early as 2025, the Atlantic current could stop. The meridional shift is taking place. The Gulf Stream, because of its hyper warmth, is actually going to change the way our lives, way we exist. I mean, average temperature in the U.S. and Europe could drop 15 degrees Fahrenheit over a 10-year period of time, and not having the tools, generative AI tools to be able to help us understand the world around us. By 2050, you have to double the food supply. Well, how can we do it? We got too much data, but we need to make sense of it. So, I think, in one sense, people are nervous, but they're always nervous about things they don't know, right?
absolutely, fear of the unknown is a age-old problem. It makes a lot of sense. If you look at evolution, the unknown was something that was accompanied typically by more risk. So it's kind of hardwired into us. But it is also something that is a bit of an issue because we cannot change the fact that this is actually going to happen. It might happen a little bit faster. It might happen a little bit slower. But as you say, there are a lot of other effects happening, whether climate change, etc., that we we need tools to deal with. And so, my theme is that framing things as acceleration versus deceleration for AI is a misframing of the situation. And this is, what I wrote in the New York Times piece in December, that misframing it as just a battle between AI accelerationists and decelerationist is missing the point, and it's distracting us from the real question. The real question is what kind of AI do we need to be accelerating and what kind of AI do we need to be decelerating? And for example, when I start pioneered the first large scale online global language translator that led to things like Google Translate or Microsoft Translate or Yahoo Translate or what have you, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody today who would argue, oh, translation AIs are something we should decelerate.
Hmm.
Pretty much everybody agrees better understanding of what's going on in spheres outside whatever your native language are can only be helpful. This is something that can help socioeconomically and help diffuse tensions that are happening due to miscommunication or misunderstanding. It's sort of there are applications of AI that I think everybody agrees are things that are important and that we need to accelerate. At the same time, there are certainly types of AI that are causing damage to society, that are actually demonstrably harmful, and those should be decelerated. And those might be things that are increasing polarization in social media and so forth.
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
that's part of the. I mean, you're right about that, Dekai. We go out. I think that's part of the. I got to speak at the UN about technology as a tool for peace a couple of years ago. And just like yourself, right, moving around the planet, living in different places, you learn to understand that if you look at people and understand where we have similarities and not differences, it's a good common ground. I think part of the problem we have is that you're right, it's polarization in everything. I've never seen it like it is now. We've created, and I don't know if it's just because of the social media or because we, for whatever reason, decide to, pick sides and stay so clear on one side. We're not really willing to reach across the aisle to try to figure out how we can work together. It's insane, actually. And we have such a beautiful little planet. My friends that are astronauts that have gone up in space in the International Space Station say when you look down at the Earth, it's an experience that changes your life because you finally understand how small we really are. And we so I hear you, and then on one side of it, I don't know how you stop. How do you decelerate some of the things that are out there, like the social media? And, the other thing is weaponry, right? There's a lot of weapons out there that is getting really smart. So, how do you decelerate? It's tough.
it's really tough, and I think one of the mistakes that I see people making is thinking that they can stop it just at the surface level. So, we talk about weaponization, AI powered weapons. About 6 to 8 years ago, in that time window, many of us, actually tens of thousands of us by now, signed a petition that was spearheaded by the Future of Life Institute, petitioning for a ban on lethal autonomous weapons. And one of the pieces that was used to popularize that was the Slaughterbots video produced by my friend Stuart Russell at Berkeley, and together with the World Economic Forum. It's a 7 minute short film that demonstrates the dangers of how AI powered drones, very inexpensive, things that can be produced easily en masse, that are operating in mesh formations autonomously, that are autonomously targeting using facial recognition and other biometric recognition techniques, and discharging projectile weapons or what have you, to target and destabilize societies in an extremely fraught environment politically that we're seeing today, where, as you've just said, uh, we haven't seen this in our lifetimes, really. I mean, we'd have to go back to before the world wars, before World War II, before World War One, to see the kind of polarization and the huge block building that we're witnessing right now. And when you have the democratization of really powerful weapons like that, uh, it's really like, lighting sparks around powder kegs, uh, and yet that's the situation we find ourselves in. And despite the petition that we all wrote against that kind of lethal autonomous weapon like drone warfare and so forth, if we just look at what's happened in Ukraine over the past year, we have gone from, in terms of drone warfare, almost nothing, suddenly now to like enormous levels of drone warfare. The escalation and acceleration of the development of drone warfare has just gone through the roof.
Hmm.
And if we think about that, do we actually think that the techniques, the plans for making very, very cheaply these drones for an increasingly sophisticated software toolkits based on AI for them to navigate, for them to recognize targets, for them to target uh, autonomously, because increasingly, in order to get around the other side jamming communications between human operators and drones, increasing amounts of autonomy are being given to the drones themselves. And do we really think that those technologies are going to stay only in the select hands of the military planners of Ukraine and Russia? Uh, of course they're not. They're going to spread. They're
Hmm.
going to spread all over the, and they're going to spread not only to nations, they're going to spread to where anybody can download them.
Hmm.
Small groups, non-governmental entities, criminals, traffickers,
Yeah,
terrorists.
no, it's unbelievable. I mean, you look at it, that's part of the dilemma. And yet at the same time, you've got these swarming technologies, right, that are out there that can actually do some good by saving people's lives. So we always have the good and the bad. And my thing is going back to it, we've got a lot of challenges on this planet. We got a population going from 8 billion to 13 billion. We got to double the food supply by 2050 to feed everybody. Can't increase the number of cattle. 26% of the pollution is methane gas. We need to have AI to be able to help us, increase crop yield, to be able to look at all the data points to figure out how we can have better, healthier crops. We need to have plant-based protein. There's so many opportunities for all of us to work together, right, to solve these problems. And you're right about it. The turn of the century, I can't say in my lifetime that I've ever seen it the way it is now, that we're so polarized. And you're right. There's a lot of stuff with social media where we're getting bombarded by nefarious groups that are out there trying to turn us in one direction or another. And then you have deep fakes and everything else. You don't know what's real anymore. Could be out there. It's not real. And nobody's. I just saw a picture. It had Putin and Trump. Looks like they were out in uh, Trump and Biden, Putin and Trump and Biden. They were out there fishing. It looked real, actually. There was all these. I'm looking at this thing and said, if I didn't know better, I would say that this stuff is real. And there's something else I don't know about. But we've got to, we've got to figure out. You're right. We've got to figure out how to live together, right? And take those technologies to do something good. Do you think we can do that, DK? Do you think we're at that point? What do you think is going to happen? I mean, what's your prediction? You look
Uh,
at the future. What do you think is going to happen in the next 10 to 15 years? Are we going to understand that as humanity, or are we just going to let these things run amok and create this incredible, nefarious situation?
we're we're at an inflection point. If I'm being honest, humanity has never faced this kind of challenge before. There aren't no precedents that we can appeal to. We need to recognize that. And the inflection point has to do with do we recognize it, or do we go on pretending that we can go on as before? Because under these new circumstances, you know, AI is offering us both, as you say, the potential to do enormous good, the potential to solve all kinds of problems that we've been facing. And at the same time, it also has the potential to be polarizing us, to divide us, and to be arming us in unimaginable ways, giving us more than enough rope to hang ourselves. And that's a choice. It's a stark choice before us. It's a choice that most of us day to day would prefer not to think about. And the inflection point is whether enough of us actually think about it and understand it's not business as usual. We need to stop. We need to look at how to overhaul major systems in our societies. The Industrial Revolution brought on a level of disruption that forced us to reform our societies in all kinds of ways. And this is something which is even more revolutionary. And this time, our survival is at stake. So, 10 to 15 years, it really depends on what we do in the next year. And I really mean in the next year. Uh, a year ago, drone warfare was nowhere near what it is today. We
Well, I
hadn't
mean,
even
that's,
seen.
you look at the Ukrainians and Russians, right? It's leveled the playing field between the two of them. You got one superpower on one side, and you got the Ukrainians that have developed, that spent a lot of time developing the drones, and it's a way they're able, with a little bit of money, to defend themselves, to keep the bad guys away. I mean, you're right, it democratizes it in a good way and a bad way.
And it's not a stasis. If we think that that's going to be just sustainable, then we're not thinking, because the development of these things goes on, and they get ever more powerful, and they get armed with more powerful weapons, and again, it becomes something which is not sustainable, not survivable.
Yeah, but
So
how do you stop it, DK? That's the other thing, is once it started, right? Is there a way? And I don't know what the answer is, right? In terms of stopping it, because, the little guys, if they're getting bullied, they're going to want to come through, and they're going to want to level the playing field. And so is it, I don't know the answer, right? I mean, honestly, I don't know what the answer is, because if I was in a situation like the Ukraine and I was having somebody coming after me, I would do what I have to do to be able to defend myself, right? And to keep them at bay.
I mean, this is the way. This is the traditional way of thinking, and I think I've thought and thought for some time about this.
Hmm.
I think that that traditional way of thinking is being obsoleted by AI. If we go on thinking about things that way, there is no surviving it.
Yeah, no, I
So
got it. I mean, so what do we do?
we can't afford to escalate conflict anymore. Back in the 20th century, we invented this mutual assured destruction thing. That was a very simple form of the game theory.
Yeah, I mean, that was like binary,
And
right? You use it, you know,
yeah, and when you have only two parties in the world that have nuclear weapons, great. That simple game theory construct works. But now, if you start getting weapons of mass destruction into the hands of everybody, that doesn't work anymore. And so, back to the drawing board. What is the new dynamic? And the new dynamic means no, we can't escalate. We can't afford to escalate. And so, the key question becomes, how do we avoid escalating conflict in the first place? And that's a question that, I think all too often, the answer that we're hearing is, oh, well, we can avoid conflicts from escalating by stronger force. And if we think that way, force always creates a reaction, which equals conflict.
hmm
And I think that we are going to have to face up to the fact, as AI continues to democratize weapons of mass destruction. And I'm not advocating for that, but that's happening. We
yeah,
need to recognize that's happening. And so what that
mass
means is
destruction
we
in ways
need to
we've
be,
even thought of before. You know what I
uh,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
Thought of before. To start getting drones that have capabilities to start flying over water sources and things like that, and undetected, and drop stuff in it. I mean, this gets kind of pretty scary, actually.
absolutely. So, one thing that I always say, that the only solutions to AI scale problems, exponential scale problems that are powered by AI, all the solutions to them are also going to have to be at exponential scale, and therefore require being AI powered. And
Hmm.
so, there's going to be example after example. We need to keep on looking. So, the question that you've just asked, how do we avoid these kinds of situations, one of the things we should be doing is applying AI to the question of how do we prevent conflicts from happening in the first place.
Hmm.
And that is a
Yeah,
question
that's a
that
good idea.
we
That's
don't seem
really
to
great,
think too much
guys.
about.
You know, it was really interesting because we did a multimodal model and we applied it to global climate change. And we
Mm.
asked it, how do we stop it? And the situation was really interesting. It actually came back with, on its own, how to reverse it. And I thought
Mm.
that was really cool, actually. And so, you know, uh, but when, does AI get to a point where it becomes omnipotent? We start to say, listen, everything comes up to. I wrote several articles about it and godlike capabilities. Are we getting to that point? Does it need to go to that point in order to solve this problem?
I mean, I don't think it's quite going to ever get omnipotent, but it'll certainly get very, very powerful.
Right. But it's to the
Uh,
point, to the point where, everything's under its control and it's trying to level the playing field to make everything fair and controlling, you know, most
so
things.
so once again, I think the framings that we choose,
Hmm.
we need to be careful about. Control is a framing. It's a framing that's very popular. Uh, but here's something that I would point out, and in fact, last month I did together with Jeffrey Hinton, the two of us did a keynote for a major UBS event, the flagship annual event, talking about AI and the future.
Hmm.
And the point came up. Uh, I think Jeff brought it up. How do we prevent AI from causing humanity to lose its autonomy? Which is the control framing. And what I pointed out, and Jeff thought was really interesting, is that we have already lost our autonomy. We've already lost our autonomy every day. The way that we're fed information by Google, by Facebook, by Instagram, by TikTok, by YouTube, by Amazon, go on and on and on. It's AIs that are deciding what we don't see.
Hmm.
All the information is on the internet about all sides of every argument you can think of. But those algorithms are shielding us from ever seeing things, and we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, that's a problem, right? You don't know what you don't know.
We've
Exactly.
already lost our autonomy to AIs,
Hmm.
and we're just walking blind, pretending we're not, because it makes us feel warmer and fuzzier to say that we still have autonomy. But we've already abandoned that. And so I don't think the question, if we frame it, how do we keep AIs from taking control? I'm sorry, that ship has sailed. That happened
Hmm.
10 to 20 years ago already. And the question really ought to be framed differently. The real
Hmm.
question is, in the interaction between AIs and humanity, what is the healthiest path forward? Because there's no way that we can possibly, imaginably, have AIs not be influencing humanity.
Hmm.
They are these. No human can review the billions of new items posted on the internet every day.
Hmm.
We are
Well, they
going to be
created to
dependent
their
on
personal
algorithms.
cloud. I mean, DCOD, we can't even think how many times in the last, in your personal cloud, you get about 300,000 items. The entire web in 1996 was 257,000 websites. You get more
Exactly.
information in your personal cloud, the entire web. In fact, your own personal clouds follow the same trajectory. By that, I mean doubling every year. In 5 years with IoT, you're going to have 10 million items. I mean, how many times, I talked to the lead authors of Nobel Prize, actresses from Hollywood, people like yourself, MIT MBAs. We got the same problem. You know that files exist, but you can't find it. And the challenge is this infobesity, information overload, is crippling on us. I have people literally, I said to one of them, I said, listen, did you get my email? Let me check. I can't find it. Will you send it again? They don't even look anymore
Oh,
because they're
it's
inundated.
crazy. It's a black email's a black hole.
And the thing is,
Uh,
We need
I
to go
tell
down.
people all the time, hey, you know, ping, direct message me if you send me an email.
Well, I mean, the thing is, and it's really interesting because that's going to stop too. My theory is, like WhatsApp, people are using WhatsApp as a substitute, but that's getting inundated too. Used to be, I had a
Absolutely.
few channels. I got so many channels now, like I got to spill over into something else. And
It's
so
getting
we
even
need to
worse.
solve these challenges in front of us, these issues
And
that
what's
each
going to
one.
happen, we're going to have AIs in the loop, and then they're going to be our personal assistants that are in charge of figuring out what to filter to us, and we will lose even more autonomy. And there's no getting around this. And so, again, instead of a futile mythology of, oh, we need to avoid losing control to the AIs, we need to be asking the right questions. How do the AIs interact with us in the most healthy way possible? And stop making it about control because we already lost that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. We've lost control and we got to do something about it. And, we back in 2016, David Yang and I developed Finder, which is a Google like search for your personal cloud. And people said we were crazy. I remember we raised $7 million and we developed it. And I said back then, this is going to really cripple us because you're going to have two sets of society. Here's the thing, my concern. DK, you're going to have people that know information that are going to be wealthy and people that don't. There's not going to be any middle class anymore. It's just going to be, they're going to disappear. So the people that have the information are going to have superpowers, right? Sam just said what last week, they have a bet about the first $1 billion company that's one person, right? And that's not, that far out there. You will be able to have superpowers to do things with things like digital workers, et cetera. So my concern, going down through it, I think that, we need to figure out inside of us how to work together and live together to be able to solve the problems of this planet. And we got to figure out how we can use AI kind of with empathy and compassion. We forget about those things, right? And as a clinical psychologist, I was a humanistic clinical psychologist. We talk about compassion, empathy, unconditional love, kind of like your grandmother, right? We need to build these AIs that are not just pragmatic models that care. I mean, what's the right thing to do? Whatever that is, and balance it. And yeah, it's the good news is that if we use it in the right way, I think we have a lot of opportunity. I think you're right too. We probably got a year to figure this out because we're going to hit that tipping point and nothing good's going to happen if we keep jacking this up and keep fighting the way that we're fighting with each other. Nothing good's going to happen.
Absolutely. And that's, it's a race against time right now. It's why I'm racing to get uh so the book that I've been working on is all about this, is all about the way AI has to be working together with compassion and empathy, which are the only things that I think are going to be able to head off this massively combinatorially scaled version of mutual assured destruction that we're now facing. And if we can't shift the way that we're conceptualizing AI and society to move past 20th century and pre 20th century norms of the way we conceptualize these things, then we won't be, stepping up to the fitness criteria of evolution. And that would be a real shame if humanity went the way of the dinosaurs because we couldn't handle this evolutionary adaptation.
I deal with some of the wealthiest families on the planet, and a number of them have told me that they're afraid we're not going to exist in another 150 years, with all the challenges with global warming and population increases, um, lots of challenges, And I think
Mm.
you're right in terms of empathy. I've been writing about empathy and compassion for a long time with AI. I think my first time I talked about it was 2016, actually,
Mm.
and when we did Findo. But I say kind of like your grandmother that cares you and loves you, like unconditionally. You go in and
Mm.
my grandmother used to bake cookies and pies and go out, take me for walks and all that stuff. That really cared about you, no matter what. Always would give you advice because they cared about you. And having the tools, the AI that helps us like that. You're right about a personal assistant, but more like your grandmother, you know.
Mm.
And anyhow, if you need anything I've written several hundred articles about this stuff.
Mhm.
I'm really concerned about it. I think emotion and compassion, all of us should be that empathy, using the emotion part in a positive way to better help us, not hatred, right? Love.
Absolutely. I Of all the things that I can imagine in terms of AI for good, that would be at the top of my list.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Well, if you need anything for your book, let me know. I mean, this stuff is near and dear to my heart. I've talked about this a long time.
I will be in touch. That definitely.
So we're coming up to the top of the show. Closing thoughts, DK, and what the best way for people to get a hold of you?
So my domain, my website is dek.ai. It's my name, Dekai. And there is a book coming out around all of these themes. I think it offers an extremely fresh voice, a very different way of looking at AI and humanity. And I would love to get previews out to people. So there's a sign up there. Please sign up with your email so that I can start getting some feedback from you and continue this conversation. I think we need to shift the conversation. We need to shift the ways that we're thinking. We need to throw out the obsolete ways of thinking from pre 20th century. Uh, it is a matter of survival.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. All right, to all my audience out there, thanks for joining one more time. Runday presents. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I'll be back to you again soon with another exciting episode. DK, thanks for your time, and thanks everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.